What up, guys? Welcome to the Son of Wanda. Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4 has dropped, so let's conversationalize. Alright, guys, so this episode of Mandalorian is called The Foundling, and much like the last episode, I have pretty mixed feelings about this one. This one was like almost half the runtime of the last one, and again, like I said, my opinions are about the same as far as my general feeling of each episode is concerned. Which is funny considering how significantly different they are in both length and as well as the story they tell. But as far as what actually happens in this episode, not a ton. And that's kind of one of the issues I have. It starts out with just Mando, Bo-Katan, the Armorer, Grogu, and all the rest of the Mandalorians and Mando's creed on this specific planet that they've been at since the beginning of the season when they were inducting the new foundling into their creed, and the crocodile monster attacked. We still don't have a name for it. I wish we did, so I didn't have to keep saying that. But we don't, at least not to my knowledge. So they're still on this beach rocky planet, and it's cool because it starts out with a little, Mando tries to put Grogu in one of the challenges that the Mandalorians are having, like some of the Mandalorians are having trials, fighting with each other, training, and Mando pits Grogu against the new foundling that was inducted into the creed at the beginning of this season. And of course, Grogu beats him because he has the Force. He doesn't start off too great, but Mando gives him some encouragement, and he says, "I know what you can do, show them what you can do." And so he Force jumps around the kid and beats the kid in the challenge. So I liked that moment a lot. But then all of a sudden the foundling kid gets snatched away by some dragon type creature. Don't know what it's called or what it is, but the Mandalorians really picked the absolute worst planet to reside on because there's been crocodile monsters and now there's dragon creatures that want to eat them. I mean, apparently every creature on this planet just loves Mandalorians for dinner or breakfast. I don't know, but it's just Mandalorians are not very good at picking temporary planets to reside on. But Mando, Bo-Katan, and Paz Vizsla and some of the other Mandalorians go to rescue the foundling. And it's funny because you can tell that there's really no actual purpose to this episode other than establishing more of Grogu's backstory. It's kind of contrived the way they do it, because all of a sudden there just happens to be this monster that kidnaps one of the foundlings. So Grogu is left behind because he's not old enough to go with the rest of the Mandalorians to try to save the foundling, even though he's gone with Mando on a bunch of other dangerous adventures, so, whatever. I guess it was just better that Grogu stayed. But it's funny because this episode is titled The Foundling, and I assume it's mainly because Grogu is a foundling. And again, you're learning more about Grogu's past in this episode. So the Armorer takes Grogu into the forge while the other Mandos go and rescue the kid. And she's talking to him about how forging metal, she's comparing it to becoming a Mandalorian and the trials you'll face and how we're all molded into what we become through these trials, through the trial by fire, basically. And she's making this new piece of armor for Grogu. She's forging it, but as she's doing so, Grogu starts to have flashbacks of when he was at the Jedi Temple, and the 501st Legion is coming for him in the temple during Order 66, when Darth Vader, as Anakin Skywalker as Darth Vader at the time, was attacking the temple. So that already was just super exciting to get to see, and I had heard rumors that might be what's going down in this episode. So you see it, and Grogu's seeing it, and the doors open, and the clones come through, and some no-name, random Jedi are defending Grogu, getting gunned down, and Grogu is taken by one of the Jedi to an elevator, and then she's killed by the clones just before the elevator doors close. Then Grogu goes up the elevator, and I'm thinking, okay, who is he going to? Because this is going to be interesting. The doors open, and it's a Jedi that we've never heard of or seen before. I believe his name is Kellery Beck, based on what I heard in the episode. But the fun part is that Kellery Beck is played by none other than Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks in The Phantom Menace. So I thought that at least was really fun to see him as a Jedi cameo as well as having also played Jar Jar Binks. That is a really fun cameo. But he is a random Jedi. And he picks up the lightsaber from the Jedi that had died in the elevator. He dual wields it with his own against the other clone troopers. He's defending Grogu. He takes him to a speeder. They have a speeder chase with one of the Republic gunships behind him, piloted by the clones, trying to get Grogu. But what's interesting is that as he's flying and being chased by the gunships, he ends up ramming into the floor of the same spot where you saw the peak of the Coruscant Mountain in the last episode, the one that Elia Kane took Dr. Pershing to. It was like one of the only natural regions of Coruscant was just this small peak of a mountain that was surrounded by a platform. But you see that again in this episode, so that makes me wonder if it's not meant for more later in the season. If this isn't supposed to be more of a nod to something that's going to happen later. I don't know, it just seems like they're making it kind of important, or at least nodding to it more than you would if it was just some random thing like, hey, look, I have a feeling it has some kind of importance. But Kellery Beck ends up taking Grogu to this landing platform with a Naboo starship on it. And these are Naboo soldiers that come to Kellery Beck. And it's funny because it looks like this was orchestrated. Like this whole escape rescue mission of bringing Grogu to the Naboo soldiers. Because the Naboo soldiers ask Kellery, they're like, were there any others that made it? And he's like, no, there weren't any others. Like, this is it. This is just me and Grogu. And I have a few questions. One of them being, the attack on the Jedi Temple was so sudden. Just, like, out of nowhere. Like, nobody expected the clones to turn against the Jedi at that point. Nobody expected Anakin to turn and attack everybody and slaughter all the Jedi. Nobody saw it coming. So the fact that they would be able to orchestrate an escape plan at all seems a little weird. That they would have time to do that during the temple attack. Because of how sudden, quick, and just like, bam, all the Jedi are dead at the temple. I don't know. There's a lot of details in here that I think need to be fleshed out more. I hope they do. I hope they will. But Kellery Beck does get Grogu off Coruscant into hyperspace on the Naboo starship, while the Naboo soldiers stay behind and sacrifice themselves to save Grogu by fighting the clones that were hot on Beck's trail. And that's where the flashback ends, is Grogu in hyperspace with Kellery Beck and the Naboo starship. And it's frustrating because I had so many, like, big aspirations for what this could be when they finally reveal it. Everybody did. Like, there's a mondo amount of theories surrounding this. Who saved Grogu from the temple? Who did? As soon as Ahsoka said that in Mando episode 5 of season 2, The Jedi, titled The Jedi, as soon as she said that somebody, some random person that we didn't know who it was, saved Grogu from the Jedi Temple, everybody was theorizing. I was theorizing, like this is one of the biggest questions we have in Mando now, if not the biggest. Who the mess saved Grogu? Because it could have been somebody really, 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 really important. My theory was Mace Windu. I thought that is how they were going to reveal that Mace Windu survived being lightninged out the window by Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. I thought they were going to reveal it like that. That Mace survived, and he was the only one that knew about Grogu, other than Yoda, probably. Because Grogu, at least to our knowledge, was the only other one of Yoda and Yaddle's species to be in the Jedi Order. So I was hoping that Samuel L. Jackson would come back as Mace Windu to save Grogu from the temple. I thought that would have been one of the coolest things ever if they revealed that. I would have lost my mind completely. There were also theories that it was going to be Barriss Offee from the Clone Wars. She was arrested at the end of the Clone Wars after the Ahsoka arc at the end of Season 5 of the Clone Wars, where Ahsoka is framed for murder, and it's discovered that it was actually the Jedi Barriss Offee who did it. People were theorizing that as well. I was hoping for Windu, and it turned out to be a random Jedi that nobody knows. He's cool. I liked the cameo. But it's like, just the whole story was so not as cool as I wanted it to be. Like, you didn't even get to see Anakin. Like, I was at least hoping that you would get to see Anakin come back and, like, maybe the Jedi would duel Anakin trying to save Grogu from the temple. Or if it was somebody important, you would just have that excitement of being like, hey, it's that character. No way. They're the ones that saved Grogu. I wonder what this means for this character. Blah, blah, blah. Bottom line, the story could have been so much more epic. Like, when you have Order 66 at the Jedi Temple and adding something to that, which is already one of the most emotional happenings inside of Star Wars when you see it in Revenge of the Sith. So anytime you add something to that, it's always going to be captivating and interesting, or at least it always should be. And that one hurts. So that's the end of the flashback. The armorer makes a new chest piece for Grogu. Meanwhile, Mando and Bo-Katan are trying to save the foundling. We learned that apparently the foundling that they're trying to save that was snatched away by the dragon monster is Paz Vizsla's son. I didn't see that coming, but it makes sense because the kid's helmet is very similar to the color scheme of Paz Vizsla's armor. So it made sense. Paz Vizsla isn't able to save his kid from the dragon monster. Mando ends up saving the kid from the dragon monster. What's weird, though, is that Bo-Katan gets the most accolades for it when they get back, and I didn't really understand that. Not that she didn't do anything. She was the leader of the operation, but it was mainly Mando who did end up saving the kid from the dragon. And it's cool because the dragon ends up falling into the water, and then when you think it's about to fly back out of the water, one of those crocodile monsters from the first episode comes up and eats it. So I definitely didn't see that coming. Points for unpredictability there. But then they go back to the Mandalorian camp. They got the foundling, everybody's celebrating, and for some reason they brought back the babies of the dragon monster that apparently the dragon monster was trying to feed the foundling to, like a bird. It's kind of disconcerting. But it's just weird to me that they brought the dragon monsters back. I don't know why you would do that. I mean, I guess they could be a valuable asset eventually, As they get older, you can train dragon monsters in the Mandalorian ways and ride them into battle. So I guess that could work. But I did like this one detail. Paz Vizsla isn't able to save his son from the clutches of the dragon as the dragon is trying to fly away with his son, the foundling, again. But Mando ends up saving the kid, bringing him back to Paz, and Paz tells Mando, he's like, thank you for saving my son. And Mando's like, this is the way, and Paz is like, this is the way. I liked that respect that they show for each other. And I love that genuine feeling of appreciation that Paz is clearly feeling for Mando saving his son. I liked that respect because they've always kind of had a little bit of beef with each other. Ever since the first episode, I'm pretty sure. Paz has always seemed to have this anger toward Mando and this resentment toward him that we've never really been able to fully grasp why Paz is so apprehensive toward Mando. But this sign of appreciation by Paz, this sign of respect between the two of them, I really appreciated that detail. But that's basically it. At the end, Bo-Katan, she lost her shoulder plate of armor during the battle with the dragon, so the armorer forges her a new one. And Bo-Katan asks the armorer if she can put a mythosaur skull symbol on the shoulder plate. And the armorer is like, the mythosaur is a sign for all Mandalorians. Of course you can have it on your shoulder plate. But then Bo-Katan ends up telling the armorer, hey, by the way, I actually saw a mythosaur. Isn't that crazy? And the armorer, I don't really know how to read her response. She just basically says, when one walks the way of the Mandalore, you see many things. And Bo's like, but no, I actually saw a mythosaur. And the armorer is like, this is the way. So it seems to me that was basically the armorer's way of saying, you're crazy, there's no way you could actually see a mythosaur. The armorer seems to think that Bo saw the mythosaur somehow in like a vision, because she's now chosen to walk the way of the Mandalore by joining their creed. So the armorer doesn't seem to believe her. It's funny to me that Bo told the armorer instead of telling Mando first. I don't know why, but she did. But at this point, it does seem like the reason that she never told them about the mythosaur in the first place was because she didn't want anybody to think she was crazy. And now it does seem like her fears were mildly confirmed because the armorer is sort of like Oh yeah, well you see a lot of things when you walk the way of the Mandalore. No big deal. So the armor doesn't seem to actually believe her. So I am curious where all of this is headed. At the same time, I am really disappointed about that Jedi thing. I will say, they definitely haven't revealed all of Grogu's backstory before he met Mando. You know, between the Jedi Temple escape and him meeting Mando, there's a Mondo amount of years in between that. Like, that's Revenge of the Sith to, like, 5 or 6 or 7 years after Return of the Jedi. Many years between those two points in the Star Wars timeline. So who knows what could have happened in those years. I remember Ahsoka saying in that same episode, in episode 5 of season 2 of The Mandalorian, The Jedi, that after Grogu was saved from the temple, his mind kind of went dark, and that's why he has trouble remembering a lot of his past after Order 66 at the Jedi Temple. So I am curious if they'll add any more to the flashbacks this season. I really hope they do, because it is possible still that we could meet somebody really important that has ties to Grogu's history in the Star Wars universe. And maybe it's not just Kellery Beck. Maybe it is somebody who we have seen, and we do know their importance to the Star Wars galaxy, and we could say, oh, I wonder how that's going to tie into everything else, what that means for this character. That potential is still not all lost. It's just frustrating that it wasn't that person already who saved Grogu from the temple. It was just some random Jedi. I don't know where Kellery Beck was planning to take Grogu. I want to kind of know how Naboo was involved, because if the clones found the Naboo soldiers helping the Jedi, wouldn't that mean that Naboo would be seen as an enemy to the Empire? But it doesn't seem like they particularly were after Revenge of the Sith. So I have a ton of questions, and unfortunately a few disappointments. But there was some good stuff about the episode, so I am curious to see how the season is going to do going further. I am frustrated because we're 4 episodes in and not a lot has happened to the plot, but maybe that'll change. So thank you guys for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. Goodbye. And that's a wrap.